Welcome back. I'm here at the Elm Street Bakery with Jay DePerno, the owner. Jay, thanks for having us here today.
Thank you for coming, Gary.
And taking time out of a real busy day here. I mean, I think people can see and hear that there's a lot of activity here, like usual. Really, can you tell us a little bit about how this idea came around for the bakery here in East Aurora?
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint any one specific genesis of it, but I would say 15-ish years ago, my wife and I started just saving money for something along these lines. And over the years, she took a real deep interest in nutrition. Probably the big catalyst was the birth of our first child, and we started diving into this is called the local food movement now.
Right.
Just realizing that the farther food has to travel, probably the more nutrition that gets lost. And then on a trip to Western Massachusetts about 4 years ago, we ran into a bakery that was somewhat similar to what we're doing, that had a big brick oven. Mm-hmm. And we found a book on the subject. And at that point, it kind of catalyzed. And came back to East Aurora after that trip, knocked on the door of this building, talked to Bill and made an offer, and he gladly accepted, which tells me I probably overpaid a little bit. And we started just the construction phase, or the reconstruction phase.
I know you put a big effort into that. I mean, you've done a fantastic job on this building, and just when you go through, you can see how beautiful it is, the detail and everything. It's just tremendous.
No, thank you. You know, it was really, it started with my neighbor, Dan Bites, who I showed the picture of one of these brick ovens, asked him if he could build one. Without blinking an eye, granted it was over a beer in the backyard, he said yes. And once he and his brother Mike started building the oven, then they began to also help me in the construction of this. And it was really just giving them the license to do their craft the best they could, and it just kind of took shape.
Can you talk about the oven and how essential that is to what you do here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the oven is obviously a really unique part of this. It is 60,000 pounds of masonry. It's completely wood-fired. It's, in essence, a 10,000-year-old technology with a couple of modern tweaks. Mostly being this real high refractory cement that allows the heat to be captured in it. So we burn or fire it all night, plug it, come in the morning, rake out the coals, and then what you end up with is a perfect combination of conduction, convection, and radiation, which is the right environment for breaking European naturally leavened breads.
Yeah.
And a great friend of mine, Rolf Hogue, who decided to come on over with us early on, just dove into the art of baking, and now understands it. And you know, I say the oven is the heart of the place.
Can you talk about that a little bit? What kind of training needs to go in terms of what that your bakers need to know, that you need to know in terms of making the bread?
Well, I'm not sure what I know. You know, he's really taken this on, and in a very, very short period of time has learned a pretty difficult craft. We started by going up to King Arthur Flour in Vermont, which has one of these big ovens, and he's gone through a bunch of training with them under a guy by the name of Jeffrey Hamelman, who's one of the foremost artisan bakers in the United States. And it was really just an immersion, and you know, I got to give Rolf credit. I mean, he's built out a not only, you know, the quality of product, but the systems that he's built to get so we can meet the demand of East Aurora, which has been incredible to watch.
Right. Well, let's talk about your menu a little bit, the different types of breads and the other things, the soups, the sandwiches, and that. Can you highlight some of those things for us?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of look at the business, and there's 5 primary components. Breads being a key part of it, which we just talked about. Most of the breads are naturally leavened, which means they're not commercially yeasted. So they start out from a starter, or a sourdough starter. We do have some yeasted breads, like our baguette. That's kind of the core part of the offering, as well as our pastries. Serendipity brought Lucy Levere, and who's just an incredibly talented pastry chef, spent a lot of time in New York, and you know, my job there is just to get out of the way. So she's really created that and got a big staff working for her. She introduced us to Christina Daly, who's our kitchen chef, who's doing the soup, salad, and sandwiches. I think our unique story there is we're trying to source as much and ultimately all of it from local farmers.
Right.
number one, we want to support the local folks, but number two, it's just simply better for you. So it's not traveling as far.
Right. And I know, can you talk a little bit more about that, the local farmers? I know you work with a lot here, you know, in the East Aurora area, but can you, expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, again, part of it is making sure most of our food that we're getting, whether it's in a grocery store or a restaurant, is coming from long distance. It's generally packaged, sealed, to the point where the nutritional value of it is gone. So we're just, and when we're continuing to try to find other local farmers that are raising their beef, their pork, their chicken the way these creatures are supposed to be raised, which is out in the sunlight. Cows are supposed to eat grass, so we're looking for grass-fed cows. Chickens are supposed to be out pecking around and doing what they do. So we find new people almost every week and are going to continue to work with them.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, we really encourage people to come out and visit you and see your beautiful location here and your restaurant, but also to take advantage of the great quality food and the great menu that you have here. I've eaten here several times, and it's just...
We appreciate that.
Yeah, well, it's just a testimony to what you do here and the great food that you serve. And also, I mean, as you said, with the, East Aurora is known for its artisans in terms of woodworking and painting and stuff like that, but here we're talking about food. You have artisans here working with the food, so I think that's really kind of a great thing and a great attraction, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look at this place as if I can create, my wife and I can create the environment for these artisans to do their craft. Our job is to get out of the way, whether it's the pastries, the soup, the bread, or our coffee. I mean, we got a coffee roaster just down the street that we're doing great locally roasted coffee.
Well, you can't be getting out of the way too much, because every time I come in, I see you doing everything. So,
well, I gotta pretend like I got a role here. So.
Yeah. Well, we got to wrap up. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you on your website, and also where you're located?
So, 72 Elm Street, right in the heart of historic East Aurora. ElmStreetBakery.com. We'll have our menu posted on a weekly basis. You can give us a call, 652-4720, or just stop by. We're here Tuesday through Saturday, basically 7 to 7.
Okay, great. Thanks for having us here, Jay. Appreciate
Thanks, Gary.
it. We'll be back in just a minute.